This is Dr. David Allen, and I'm talking with Margaret Smith, a very distinguished psychotherapist and marriage and family counselor. As I said earlier, we run the project called the Family People Helping People Project. We have 21 families throughout Nassau, and these are focus groups. They're in the prison, they're in the Boys and Girls Industrial School, Ranfully Home, Camp Road East Street, Carmichael, and what have you. And so what we just did, we just completed our analysis of the major themes of 776 groups meeting throughout the year 2014. And the leading themes were 1, anger, 2, violence, and 3, grief. In the last segment, Ms. Smith was talking about how that it's okay to be angry, but somehow the Bible says, be angry but do not sin. And she defines sin as being destructive. And but Margaret, I was saying, it's really hard to be angry and not become wanting to hit back, wanting revenge, wanting to retaliate. How do you be angry and not retaliate and not hit back?
I know that I do it because I see it makes it worse. It really, just to say practically, it just makes it worse. And to tell somebody to engage in violence is not going to be the answer to the problem. It's not going to be the answer to the fact that you felt demeaned or shamed or dissed. To say that in the midst of somebody's psyche, to where I see many of our young people are at. It's very difficult to say it, but really, I must. It just makes it worse.
So revenge just makes it worse?
Just makes it worse. Can you just see that? The revenge, it takes over. It's like vomit that is spread on our nation.
The guys tell you, Doc, he got me, so I gotta get him.
Yeah. And it becomes like vomit, and then somebody's going to get him, and then get his mother or get his brother, and it just keeps going on. It's a vomit. It's spread. It's nasty. It stinks.
But as a psychotherapist, do you have any answer? How can we stop it?
One of the things, it's very difficult, but one of the things I say to young people, I know he said my mama. And when he said my mama, that meant I had to do something about it, right? So if you can step back and say, even if they said my mama, that doesn't mean that that didn't change anything about my mama. If my mama is a beautiful person, if she's a loving person, their words did not destroy that. So can you take back your power, or you are going to be the person that is controlled by somebody else's words? So I believe that we need to take back our power and believe internally that somebody's words against me does not destroy me or change me or define who I am. I must know who I am.
So Margaret, are you saying that we're becoming fragile?
We're fragile because we think that those words that person is saying about me really defines me and really destroys me. And that I have no power over myself. That I don't love myself for who I know that I am.
And you're saying we do have power over ourselves?
We have power over ourselves. If I love myself, I can say to myself, Margaret, you got flaws, you got faults, which I say, but there are some beautiful things about you. Now, in spite of, so loving yourself and real good self-esteem is knowing that your strengths, your weaknesses, and your flaws, and still loving who you are. Being able to say, I know my flaws, I know my weaknesses, I know my strength, but I prefer being me than anybody else.
But Margaret, can a person just get there, or that's where therapy comes in?
For many people, it requires therapy.
So you're saying if somebody's listening tonight and they're finding that they cannot just accept their flaws and they have to fight back, maybe they need to come in and talk to someone.
They do.
Because they can learn.
They can learn. And it can be, and parents can do this to their children. And I may embarrass my sister by saying this, but one of the things that she would do to her children is she would hold her child's face and say, wow, look at your lips. They're perfectly pink. They're perfectly bold. Look at your cheeks. They're beautiful. And this whole thing of beauty, physical beauty, that especially for the black person is often beauty is because we are not dominant. The black person, we are the minority or the oppressed or the looked down upon. But beauty is defined mostly, the more European a black person looks, the more beautiful they are seen. And in
How do you change that then?
it changed that, like my sister said, your lips are beautiful. They're
So you're telling
bold.
people, tell your
Tell your children that, you know, you look at your arms, look at the color
So that may
of
be the
your
only time
skin.
they'll hear it if
Yeah,
you
look
don't
at the
tell
color
them.
of your skin. It's so beautifully brown. And it's something that is so important to me in terms of us loving ourselves, embracing. I say embrace. People say, oh, I'm getting so dark in the sun. I said, embrace your blackness. Embrace it. It's beautiful. Start telling your children. You can affirm your own self.
Margaret, how did you come to embrace your blackness or yourself and to realize, because you're such a beautiful person, but there must have been a learning experience
It
too.
was.
How did you learn that?
I learned it as from a teenager. That's when I think all of us, as you know, developmentally, when you become a teen, you start to think in an abstract way. You ask yourself what you think is a deep philosophical question. Why am I here? Who am I? We ask those questions. And I remember in school that one of our teachers told us that, hey, this is how Europeans saw black people. You saw that you look like a monkey, and then also we were seen as subhuman. Oh, I remember how that hurt. And then in my growing up experience, I went to a church.
But how old were you when your teacher said that?
I think I was probably about 14.
It must have blown your head.
Yeah.
It must.
It hurt, and I didn't.
What did you do? I mean, what did you do with that?
What I did with it, I started to think from a theological perspective.
At 14?
At 14. And I wouldn't have told you at 14 I was thinking about it from a theological perspective, but in hindsight, I started to think, did God make me? And if God made me and he made the white man, then he's my creator, just like he's their creator. And then I thought about it physiologically. If they cut me and I cut them, we bleed. So my whole thing was then, I said, you know what? If someone looks down upon me because of the color of my skin, that's on them. But I'm not going to be that person they think that I'm not going to be down.
How did you develop that? Because there are people tonight listening tonight and say, Margaret, I hear what you're saying. But that is easier said than sometimes done.
I practice it. I don't know if that is easy or hard to practice, but they say practice makes perfect, right?
How do you practice?
It didn't mean that it didn't happen, but I said, I believe this. This is what I believe. And when I was faced with situations which made the practice that I need to practice, if someone put me down because of the color of my skin, My practice was, I'm sorry that you think that way, but I know who I am. And I believe the practice. Now, there was this whole thing of you have to believe, become. You must believe something to become it. And the more you become it, then the more you believe.
Wait now, say that again.
You must believe, behave, become. And a very
Believe, behave, become. Explain.
and they were not my. These are something that I was taught years ago at in a presentation by Monsignor Moss. He spoke to a class at COB.
What a great man he is,
Yes.
Monsignor Moss.
And I remember that, and that was in '86 or '87 that he taught.
Let's break it down then.
Yes.
Believe, behave, become.
And become. He said that the Bahamian society, though we believe ourselves to be such a Christian nation, really when it comes to behaving what we believe, it's very poor. I hope he's, if he's listening to this, I hope I'm right with how I'm quoting, but this is how I remember it. We say we believe, but we don't behave it. If you believe that you should be loving and you don't behave it, then you can't become loving.
Wow.
So you believe it, you behave it, and the more you behave it, the more you become.
Wow. That's powerful. You got to believe, you got to behave, and then you become.
Yes.
We're going to take a break and be right back.